because it illustrates to me what a man actually is in
Right.
parable. And I've told them, I was like, look, you need to be a sheepdog in this world because nothing will make dad go left faster than a bully.
Mycal Anders, welcome to the Executive Dad Podcast.
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I am doing well. It is a Saturday morning, early for you. I think we first got on here at 6 a.m. your time, so one, I appreciate you. You are a man of many facets, and we've been connected for a while. I want you, in your words,
Yeah.
to tell me, who is Mycal Anders?
Oh, man. Mycal Anders is a father, a Marine Corps veteran, a husband, entrepreneur, best-selling author, podcast host, and some would say I've lived many lives, and in this season of my life, I'm building the fittest leaders.
In this season of your life, you're building the fittest leaders. I love that.
Yeah.
When I look at you as a father, one of the selfish things that I love when I connect with veterans is hearing, obviously we share the Marine Corps. You got your Marine Corps tag behind you. I got the flag. What is a lesson, either positive or negative, however it shaped you from your time in the Marine Corps, that has impacted you as a father of Tristan 8 and Cameron 6?
I don't think that it's a positive or a negative, but it's a lesson nonetheless. And it permeates through every facet of my life as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, a leader. And that is, the leadership style of knife hands and motherfucks is not effective out here.
Tell me more.
Yeah. In the beginning, I found myself just being very heavy-handed in leadership, very dogmatic in my approach, and that bled into feedback I would receive as to being unapproachable, people not feeling comfortable giving me feedback, that I didn't take feedback well, that I was very resistant to other people's opinions. And in the beginning, in my transition away from the uniform, I would spend a lot of time trying to convince myself that it was a concession of my ego, a violation of my integrity to have to adopt a different language pattern or a new approach to communication. And after a while, and this is most things, I would assume that you have to confront the fact that what you're doing isn't working anymore, and you have to do something different. And it took a lot of self work, introspection, and reflection, a lot of strategic mentorship in that regard to really come to terms with the fact that no, this is not, and this is actually what I coach in leadership now. It's not a concession of your ego. It's not a violation of your integrity that you have to uh, use different word codes and adopt different language patterns to make sure that message intended is message received. And as a father, what's been really powerful in that regard is meeting my kids in their feelings, not not just giving them the pass or trying to make things too easy or remove any and all adversity. That's not it. However, when they're in a highly emotive state, um, meeting them where they're at. Tell me what's going on, inviting those feelings out of them, and instead of uh, where how we were raised in our generation and through the Marine Corps, where every decision is based on the premise that at some point the bullets will be flying and the bombs will be dropping. Make a fucking decision. We need to. Can I cuss?
Absolutely.
Okay. Like if you don't make a decision, someone will die, and we'll deal with the emotions later, right? Or the suppression of emotion because you're a man, right?
Correct.
That we know that to not be productive, and at the same time, the purpose that it serves in the Marine Corps, that purpose does not exist out here, right?
Right.
So as a father, when my kids are highly emotive and in their feels, as the kids say these days, uh, allowing them to uh, being with them in the process of moving through the emotion,
Right.
right? As opposed to dismissing it completely and moving on, helping them, uh, inviting them into the practice of feeling what they need to feel for as long as they need to feel it, and helping them understand after a certain point, you're choosing that emotion as opposed to reacting to whatever the stimulus was that incited it in the first place.
Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful takeaway. Number one, I think we've talked about this before, but when you look at historically,
Mm-hmm.
the greatest generation coming home from World War II, Korea, into the raising the next generation into Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
into that lull period in what do we say, like full tilt combat,
Yep.
right? And then into us, those are the people that raised us, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
still had those lingering effects of men don't have emotions, and hey, just do what you're told,
Right.
like you said, the knife hands, and just telling us how to feel,
Yep.
right? And I think that is a huge opportunity for growth, because many parents that are around our age
Mm-hmm.
still have those lingering impacts from the dads, maybe even the moms that raised us, the
Yep.
coaches that we had, the mentors that we had as young people. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we show up in a way to that demonstrates presence. I talk about this on every episode. How are you
Yeah.
showing up and being present for
Mm-hmm.
your kids? So my question to you is, your son Tristan,
Mm-hmm.
he's having those emotions, whether it's
Yep.
connected to something at school or something going on at home.
Yeah.
What behavior? Tell me exactly what that looks like for you, or an example for you to show
Mm-hmm.
up. I always say hold space,
Yeah.
seek to understand that emotion, but then help him navigate through that will serve him later in life.
Yeah. So his big my son is an achiever. I mean, go figure.
Where does he get that from?
He wants to do it right all the time. His my wife is a coach's daughter. They are, my wife and her dad are both in the Wisconsin Basketball Hall of Fame.
I can see that.
Okay. Uh, my pedigree, both my parents are veterans, both 20 plus year retired officers in the Air Force, multiple master's degrees. My dad was a private practice criminal defense attorney. My mom was in nursing administration forever, and a retired colonel. And, so the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in terms of just what I'm learning in family dynamics, like whether my wife and I don't really have to say shit, just the the stories that we tell elicit an expectation of excellence.
Hmm.
Like there's an underlying theme that if you don't check in on it can present toxic. I feel like we're doing a really good job navigating that with our kids, but like
Right.
I'm supposed to be good because my parents were good, you know?
Yep.
Um, so, uh, how that shows up in my kids is they want to do things, and it's not exclusive to my son, it's my daughter as well. Uh, they want to do things right and they want to do things well. And when they meet resistance in the learning process, because you and I both know that's like an unrealistic expectation to just be fucking awesome at everything right off the bat.
Yep.
That's challenging. There's a lot of, and because we're talking about children, right? The ego is heavily present, right? Because at this stage of development, it's all about them. You know what I mean? They're learning themselves and creating that relationship with self-efficacy, self-esteem, self-confidence, right? This is where that develops.
Right.
So, when they meet friction, uh my daughter that presents scholastically, my son it presents physically, like the
Hmm.
technicality of physical activity. So when he
Right.
doesn't perform well in jujitsu, or drops a pass really really hard on himself, when my daughter doesn't grasp a concept in math right off the bat, very challenging. And just letting them know that, hey, what resistance actually is the learning taking place,
Right.
and to not run from it or uh, resist it, but to embrace it and pursue the next rep, right? We're just going to do it again. We're just going to
Yep.
do it again. And eventually, or we'll do it differently, and eventually it will land, you will get it, and we will move on. So that's how my wife and I express presence with them as the learning is occurring, but they're experiencing resistance.
Yeah. And what I hear from that is showing up, right? Being
Mm-hmm.
there with them, and then doing your best to communicate. This is
Mm-hmm.
all part of the journey. This is what
Mm-hmm.
is going to make you better down the line.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, what that looks like, what that can look like from the outside looking in is really hard parenting. You
Right.
know, what that can look like is we're gonna sit here until it gets done. What that can't, because you can't run from the work, you can't avoid the process. You
Right.
know, so there's a lot of lessons in discipline. When my wife gets all the news first, and then she tells me, we had a conversation about Cameron's pending parent teacher conference, and Tristan is very academically inclined. My daughter's super smart too. She's just not as into school as he
Yep.
is. So, the preliminary report is that, she's so social butterfly and sometimes she talks too much, right? And uh and then we get like the scholastic performance, how's she doing in reading, how's she doing in math and science, and da 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 da. And A's, B's, whatever, or whatever the equivalent is in first grade.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't really care about the grades right now. What I do care about is the discipline, because the grades, well, as long as we're involved and the teachers are doing what the hell they're supposed to do, will take care of themselves.
Right.
The discipline thing, respecting having a respect for who's talking, who's teaching, like those are immediate fixes.
Right.
Those are things that she absolutely has control over.
Yep.
Whether or not she grasps her ABCs and 1, 2, 3s right away, like way less my concern.
Yep.
And so yeah, that's my approach to things.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, and hearing it from you is meaningful. I think, something we've had some struggles as well with our 11-year-old with talking too much, and I'm like, he's 9, he's 10 years old, of course he wants to talk. Like, there's a whole different podcast on, is the school environment set up for success for an 11-year-old boy, that loves sports and wants to run outside and do crazy
Yeah.
things. But what I talk to him about when he's walking into a practice for basketball or football, as well as, hey, when he gets something back, I'm like, these are important. Like, yes, I want you to work hard, I want you to enjoy the journey, get better, but are you growing into a good human?
Right.
Like,
Right.
are you respectful? Are you helping
Mm-hmm.
out your teammates? Are you picking them up off the ground? Those are the things that will continue to serve you long term, and that's not easy, right? And I think a challenge a lot of people have is they're removing
Mm-hmm.
the hard from their children, right? Or they're removing the hard from their teams at work,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like, hey, we're going to sit here and we're going to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Right.
very explicit in the way that I talk to my children. I don't want anything left to interpretation. I don't want them walking around thinking, with the idea that they thought I said XYZ. And so I'm on the record, at the dinner table, telling
Yep.
my children, I'm your dad, not your friend.
100%.
And I have explicitly told them, my purpose in this life is to prepare you for the world out there.
Yep.
So that you don't go out there and become a victim or get taken advantage of. That you can see it in Marine Corps speak, see the threat before it shows up. And that
Right.
sounds so crazy, I know. However, let me show you how this conversation manifests out here in the real world in my soon to be 9-year-old son. there's a scene in um, uh, the Chris Kyle movie,
American Sniper.
American Sniper, in the very beginning, where they come home after getting in a fight at school, and the dad gives him the sheepdog speech, right? And I think, the little brother gets into a tussle, and before he starts to discipline them, he looks to the big brother and says, "Did you back him up?" And then to further the point, he's like, "Did you finish it?" Right? And I that was so powerful that I give that speech to my kids, because it illustrates to me what a man actually is in
Right.
parable. And I've told them, I was like, look, you need to be a sheepdog in this world, because nothing will make dad go left faster than a bully.
Yep.
And what is a bully? The wolf in the story. And we sure as shit aren't going to be bullies out here. You're big, you're smart, you're handsome, you have all these things going for you. Don't be that guy. And at
Yep.
the same time, don't be meek. Don't be a sheep, don't be a follower. Don't just go along to get along. Be a leader, right? Be the
Yep.
sheepdog. Okay.
Yep.
So, I'm always wondering, I was like, wow, how far over his head did that actually go? And we're at football practice last 2 weeks ago now, and there's this kid throwing a temper tantrum. If he drops the ball, the pass wasn't right. If he gets his flag pulled, he gets down in the dumps.
Yep.
And at the same time, when they're in the huddle, he's always picking on these kids, pinching them, grabbing them, asserting his dominance in some way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
beyond kids being kids, okay? And I let coaches coach. I do not interfere, And at the same time, boys being boys, that shit will handle itself. I'm
Sooner or later.
I am certain, you know,
Yeah.
somebody will let that kid know that this isn't going to fly. So, letting nature take its course. Uh, this bully is picking on this other kid, and I watch my son walk over to him, place his hands on his shoulders, look him dead in his eye, and he didn't shake him. I'm sorry, but look him dead in his eye, and where this kid is already amped up, my son down regulates. It's fucking beautiful
Yeah.
watching it. He says, "Hey man, that's not cool." And he politely, gently escorts this kid to another area of the huddle, and then goes back to being coached. And I'm like, it didn't matter how many passes he caught, how many touchdowns he scores, how many flags he pulls. The only thing we celebrated after that practice was that moment,
Yep.
because that's the behavior that transcends any accomplishment he will ever have in athletics. And
Correct.
that's where, I'm like, okay, it landed.
Yep.
Yep.
100% a life behavior that will continue to serve more than having great hands in a football game or being fast, all those
Hmm.
things. And when you combine those, that is when you get a
Yes.
truly impactful person. Like, I'm willing to do the
Mhm.
work physically, mentally, emotionally, but I'm also a
Mhm.
great human who knows how to use the
Dude,
gifts that I
I couldn't
have
I
for a
couldn't have been more
positive
proud.
impact.
I couldn't have been more
Yeah,
proud, man. It was
100%.
absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And I think that specific scenario happens on every football team, every basketball team. I've seen it, exact same
Yeah.
thing, right, on Wyatt's team. So I thank you for sharing that. Transitioning a little bit, I want to dive
Yeah.
into the business piece. I know you are a leader through and through. Tell me
Hmm.
what, your podcast, your motto for the gym, your mantra is progress always.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
Man, you gotta I invite people to be in constant pursuit of intentional adversity. It does, our process for progress always is quite simple. It's keep your promises, do hard things, and make yourself proud. And what you create in that endeavor is a positive feedback loop.
Yep.
So no matter where you're at, how high you evolve in your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual states of being, you're consciously working to become more anti-fragile. You've heard the saying, "Iron sharpens iron."
Yep.
Uh, Steel is tempered. The more you heat it, the more you beat it, the stronger it becomes.
Right.
Right. The that's that's the goal. In 25 years of strength and conditioning on some level, and through the grace of client longevity, I've discovered that the physical is just the foundation for everything, sets the tone for everything else, and you have to be mindful of the vessel because it sets the stage for your emotional regulation that creates mental clarity, which allows you to show up as your highest and best, dare I say, spiritual self. And the longer I'm with the client, the less it becomes about six pack abs, getting off blood pressure medication, losing 40 pounds, or, putting yards on my drive off the tee,
Right.
and way more about the things that really matter beyond health, but also your wealth, relationships, and time. And helping people understand that by by prioritizing these pillars, they compound and become force multipliers for each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy my relationship so much more when I'm healthy. My ability to create wealth is so much is compounded by
Right.
my relationships. My ability to do with my time what I please with who I want, when I want, in the manner with which I see fit makes the other three exponentially better.
Right.
And it's like, oh, and I'll never forget the first time, because this is just all of that was expressing just my inherent curiosity for everything. I have a tattoo on my left arm. It says, "I only got this far because of what I did not know." And I'll never forget the first time a client said, "Dude, you're way more than a personal trainer."
Like,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
I cannot even remember the context of the conversation we were having, but I was uh, helping them helping them navigate a really challenging scenario for themselves, and
Yep.
uh, they're like, "This has been," and they're seeing a therapist and all that stuff, and one of the biggest criticisms of things like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yep.
is it's all talk and there's no action steps beyond it, right?
Yep.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I am not certified for any of that stuff. However, as we're having these conversations and we're again that physical foundation unlocks this bigger conversation,
Correct.
right? And as you're moving through that conversation and you're solving the riddles of life, uh there's got to be a call to action. There's got to be something to do on with these epiphanies, these light bulb moments, these ahas that we have when we're uh, solving these issues, right? So
Right.
we adopted uh, this piece called the next easiest step, and it's the one shift in your behavior, your pattern moving towards alignment that you can be held accountable for, that doesn't break the ship, that doesn't damage the machine, right? But at the same time, going back to our iron sharpens iron, tampering steel, becoming anti-fragile analogy, it puts just enough friction into the mix to get you off your ass,
Right.
and to play at your edges. So that's where that's all of that is encompassed in progress always.
Yeah. So many beautiful pieces of that. I was trying
Good thing
trying
we're
my
recording
best.
this.
Yeah, that was beautiful. One, I think maybe a rebrand of like the philosopher coach. Maybe that's who you are, the
Yeah.
philosopher. I don't
Well,
know, consultant.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that was a big one for me. When the pandemic hit, I didn't know if I was going to have a gym when it was all
right.
said and done. Like the world 5 years ago looked really fucking bleak, and
Yeah.
I did what a lot of people do in moments of crisis uh, and uncertainty. I went back to school.
Yeah.
I hedged my bets, and because of the because on paper, despite the amazing intro and everything, uh, and the things that I've achieved in my life, I was probably the least qualified on paper to be accepted into my cohort at the Thunderbird School of Global Management on paper.
Right.
But because of the way I've lived my life and this pursuit of intentional adversity and overcoming getting kicked out of school, my journey through the Marine Corps and entrepreneurship, etc. And my uh, I hadn't yet crystallized everything that I just told you with regards to how I teach and coach leadership. But because of all of that, I was accepted. And I took this class by Dr. Hunsaker. He wrote a book called Bridger. And in his analysis of the term Bridger, it's somebody who sees things that are seemingly unrelated and is able to connect them.
Hmm.
Okay. And I was like, yeah, that's 100% what I do, you know, and with people, with concepts, etc. And I was like, we're not we're not strength coaches at next level. We're not personal trainers. We're performance consultants. We're taking all these pieces, your health, your wealth, your relationships, and your time, and creating these seemingly these not so obvious connections through this process we call lifestyle integration, and helping our clients answer the question, what's actually in alignment with who I desire to become.
Right.
And uh, raising that chair again.
Raise that chair back up.
um, what's actually in alignment with who I desire to become, and we have to look at everything in totality. Is it my how does my fitness regimen play into that? How does my investment strategy, in a lot of cases lack thereof, impact my ability to become that person? How are my relationships influencing my ability to bridge the gap between where I am and where I want to go? And then, how have I prioritized my time in building all of that so I don't leave myself behind?
Right.
That's a really common theme in the leaders that we serve is they have demonstrated tremendous talent, work ethic, insert positive character trait here at the detriment at their own expense.
Right.
So they solve the money problem, they get to the peak of their life's aspirations only to realize, damn, where do I fit in this equation? Right? So like I did a presentation, I did a workshop at Thunderbird not too long ago, and I took everybody through a time audit. And I just the exercise is really simple and profound
Right.
in that you're going to pull out your calendar and you're going to scroll as far forward as possible so that you're able to schedule a recurring 30 to 60-minute appointment with yourself during working hours. We don't need to determine what we're going to do with that time yet. Uh, but you got to make that time for you. It's for
Mhm.
you, for no one else, not your significant other, not your kids, not to catch up on work, for you. And in that room, the record, I've been doing this exercise with folks for a long time, and this guy had to go 13 months ahead in his calendar to make it happen.
Wow.
Right now, that's like, holy shit, that's crazy. Well, he's not living in alignment, right? He's achieving great things. He's moving a big mission forward, and he's doing in his mind what needs to be done to make that happen. Well, the next step in this workshop is to then reprioritize things, take a look at your life from a different perspective. And, I'm in a room full of, excuse me, executives, entrepreneurs, and business leaders. Okay. For context.
Yep.
So we got to look at what meetings do I not need to be in? What tasks can I delegate downstream? How can I lean on, and in some organizational work that we do, adopt a culture of small unit leadership so that I'm not micromanaging things unknowingly.
Right.
And through that lens, we condense a 13-month timeline to 3 weeks.
Huge impact.
Yeah. And I'm like, so that's what we do, man.
Yeah. And to put it into like simple takeaway, obviously a beautiful exercise, and it pertains in a huge way to work, freeing up that time for yourself so you can think about what should I be working on for the business, for my position? Where should I be focused? As opposed to just, we get caught going through the motions. I'm in this meeting, then this meeting, and I do this on Wednesday, and this. All of a sudden, we're years down the road, and we're still the same person. And we really haven't had a positive impact on business. Right. For a dad, leaning into the same practice. And it's that crazy struggle that I think we all feel as dads, right? Societally, you're told, hey, you need to leave the home. You need to be a provider.
Yep.
But then you have this natural pull. Like, I've never wanted something more than to spend time with my daughter, spend time shooting basketball with Wyatt. But then I'm like, well, I need to lean into work. I need to lean into my endeavors, the podcast, to like produce values, because I'm the provider. I'm taking care of the family. Yeah. How can I take that exercise for business leaders, entrepreneurs, and bring it into my personal life as a dad to ensure I'm prioritizing me? And this is something I talked about yesterday on a solo episode. Yeah. Prioritizing me is selfless. Yep. So that I can show up in the best way. How can I turn that exercise into what I can do as a dad?
Yeah. Oh, dude, easy. It's quality. It's quality over quantity. My days get really long sometimes. And I know my kids are waiting on daddy to get home. Right. And sometimes I'm able to get them to practice and do those things and take some of that stuff off my wife's plate. Really awesome. But when it's all said and done, it's quality over quantity. So I know when I walk through that door after 7 p.m. sometimes, I've got a 10-minute sprint with these kids. If they want to fucking wrestle, we're going to wrestle. If they want to play a board game, we're going to do that. Like, it doesn't matter what chaos I'm trying to manage out there in the world. I got 10 to 30 minutes before these kids go to bed, and I need to be here for it, because those problems are going to be there no matter what. So I owe it to my kids. I owe it to my family to give them that.
Right.
And dude, and sometimes I think I told you this last week. I'm not perfect at it. I came home last week, very similar scenario, and I was checked out. Yep. I was just doing Mycal things around and just like in my family's orbit, but not, I was physically here, but I was not here. Kids go to bed, and my wife and I have this agreement of honest conflict versus dishonest harmony. John Gottman has done a tremendous amount of research on this. And we've adopted this in our relationship and in our organization at Next Level as well, where if you see it, call it out, and it's far more, has way more utility and is far more proactive in serving your relationships to be uncomfortable for 5 minutes than to walk on eggshells for weeks, months, years at a time. because
Right.
all that does is breed resentment. So, I'm in the kitchen. I'm doing Mycal shit. Making myself some food or whatever. And I am so unaware in this moment of how not present I am. She stops me. The stove is still on. Eggs in the pan. And she's like, "What are you doing? You're not present." And as we're making a lot of shifts in business right now, and that's where my mind is at. And she's like, "Look, I know you're going through a lot. I know you're trying to manage a lot of pieces. And still, when you come home, be home."
Right.
And it was it. You can't go back and do it over. You can
One shot.
All you can do is start from now. And since we have adopted this behavior, this way of being in our relationship, for me, there's been a lot of starting from now. Like none of the old self like goes out without a fight.
Right.
And just having the compassion with each other to hold space and move through it together.
Yep.
It is everything. And so what the practice that brings you back to consciousness for what we're talking about, this presence, this quality over quantity thing, I pull into the driveway and check in with myself. This is the practice that moves you to presence. Okay?
This is the behavior right here.
Yes. It's not what we're talking about is the result.
Correct.
Okay? That everything I just told you is the result of not doing what I'm about to tell you.
Right.
I pull into the driveway, throw the truck in park, and I check in with myself. Could I get out and walk in the house right now and be present for that 10 to 30 minute sprint with my family? No, I'm not even close. Cool. And I move through 10 breaths. Very simple, right?
Yep.
And check in again. And dude, I have moved through that exercise, I shit you not, 9 times before. I was just bringing it all down.
Yep.
So I could walk in that house and be present.
Yep. I think that is the perfect executive dad positive behavior change. That if you're listening to the episode, you're 40 minutes in. If you haven't taken anything else when there's been so many nuggets, that's it. What is your active positive behavior that allows you to physically, mentally, emotionally transition from being an executive leader to being an executive dad that shows up in a beautiful way for your partner, for your children? What is that transition? I think the breathing practice is a great one. I want to pull on 10 things from that talk. One, the honest. Well, give me.
Honest conflict versus dishonest harmony.
Honest conflict versus dishonest harmony. That is such a profound way to say, like, I'm willing to lean into the hard things, right? Which gets into your principles, right? Do hard things was one of them you shared earlier. And just being willing to have the hard conversation so that we can move forward.
Yeah.
Right? And then to reconnect back to, coaching, counseling, the difference of that, right? It is what is the behavior? What are we doing from now forward? I'm not going to sit here and just talk about what went on in the past and what I did wrong or how this impacted me. It's like, no, what's the next easiest step?
Yeah.
Right. But then I want to celebrate Nicole because I absolutely love her and connect it for you. That moment that Nicole shared with you in the kitchen is the exact moment that Tristan shared on the football field with the bully.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that just shows the executive mom showing up the same way that
Mm-hmm.
to set the example for Tristan, for Cameron, in a
Mm-hmm.
way that is
Yeah.
impacting them in a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
Right? She put her
Well,
hands on your shoulders and said, "Hey, dude,
mm-hmm.
that's not
Yeah.
cool. I love you.
Yeah. Well,
Be here."
mm-hmm. And I will share, we do not hide that from our kids.
Yes.
We do not hide, and I think this is indicative of the way that we were raised. Like unless something went like off the rails, like, and my parents completely lost their respective shit.
Yeah.
I never saw them do the work together.
Me
You
neither.
know, like so many of those kinds of conversations, if they were happening, happened behind closed doors in private, right?
Yep.
And Nicole and I have just, for the sake of our children and what it looks like to have a productive, respectful, loving conversation, relationship, like that doesn't come without conflict. That doesn't come without friction. That doesn't make me an angel in my wife's eyes, nor her in mine. You have to be able to, the message, both implicitly and explicitly, that we want our children to receive through us, in us, is that we choose each other every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what choosing your partner looks like, and a lot of the reason for that in us, obviously it serves us tremendously. And at the same time, as society gets more and more engrossed and immersed in social media and dating apps and stuff like that, it's like, look, at some point the grass isn't greener, and you
Right.
have to choose. You have to make these agreements to yourself, for yourself, and in your relationship to grow together and
Right.
accept and understand each other's imperfections. And that I'm convinced that the only way that you're going to learn that is through example.
Absolutely. And that goes back to, leading by example in the workplace, at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, when you share
Yeah.
that, you never saw your parents argue, me neither. And also, I've
Mm-hmm.
truly never saw them just be like crazy in love with each other, right? Like there were,
My wife made that. My wife made that comment last night. She took me out for my birthday, and she was like, "Did your parents do date night? My parents never did date night."
no,
I was like,
absolutely not. I saw
Now
a
that I think
peck on
about
the
it,
cheek
no.
or a peck on the lips, like maybe
Don't
a
get me wrong.
hug.
My parents were very loving towards each other. There was no
Yeah.
absence of emotion, but like the I guess
work.
the intentionality. I did.
Right.
I didn't witness. Like, hey, we're going out on a date. By virtue of my mom's career, they had a lot of functions. Right. They went out a lot, but like
Yeah.
it was a unit function or like some Air,
Air
Force
Force
stuff.
ball.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember like, hey, I'm taking your mom out on a date.
Yep.
My dad's love language for sure was physical touch and gift giving. So,
Okay.
and I get my last minute shit from him, no doubt. But yeah, he would wake me up on Mother's Day and be like, hey, we gotta go get your mom some flowers, and he would take me. You know what I mean? So like those,
Right.
some of those lessons, I think accepting in our parents that they were doing the best they could with what they had, right?
Absolutely.
And seeing that for what it is, so those lessons just came differently,
Right.
and ultimately, as a father and a husband, you have to decide how you want those lessons to manifest for you guys, right?
Yeah.
And
And
I don't
I think
see a lot of husbands, fathers, leaders explicitly communicating those expectations.
right. And how can you do that? right? How are you showing up to set the
Yeah.
example, leading by example for your kids with
Mhm.
love for your partner? Same
Mhm.
thing applies. How are you showing up
Yeah.
for your team in a way that sets the example for them? Because guess
Mhm.
who's going to be the future leader? The team,
Yep.
right? Everyone has
Right.
a progression up the ladder, just like your kids do. And the
Mhm.
last point I want to pull is accepting that your parents are human and they were doing the best they can.
Yeah.
Accepting that your kids are human and they're doing the best they can. Yes, it seems sometimes they're making decisions just to fuck with you, but they're not, right? They're doing the best they can,
So true.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Oh yeah.
applies in the business world as well. So I want to transition.
Absolutely.
So many great points.
Yeah.
You know, you had your key leadership principles in that: keep your
Mhm.
promises, do hard things, and make yourself proud. Three powerful
Yeah.
principles that you shared. Transitioning to
Yeah.
our fast hitter questions here at the end.
Yep.
What is your one message? You're going to send a text message to every executive dad. For you, it's going to be a video message from the, Coach Durs, philosopher
Mhm.
coach. What's the one
Yeah.
message that every executive dad should read?
Uh, your values and your flow, and it's to be protected at all times. This is a big hurdle for me to overcome in my leadership journey because my highest and best use to what we're building looks like play to, to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, uh, I, not knowing that, being unaware of that dynamic in myself, I would also choose things that were not like the complete opposite of my highest and best use. I do not belong involved in the administrative tasks of what we're building at next level.
You
That,
and me
like, for
both.
me, that needs to be delegated and managed by someone on my team,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I would intentionally early on take that on uh, because it was a skull drag for me. It was really fucking hard. And in my mind's eye, if you observe me in this hard place, you'll respect me more as a leader, as opposed to me doing all the things that move us forward, make us money, that look like play.
Mm-hmm.
So your values in your flow, and it's to be protected at all times.
Beautiful message. The last question for the day. This is something cool we do on the show. We've got the Executive Dad Notebook here. The previous guest, Mike Earnshaw, episode just came out this week, left you a question, and it is this. You have money to
Mm-hmm.
go to any location to have lunch with any body of your choosing, dead or
Mm-hmm.
alive. Where are you going and who are you going with?
Well, I know where I'm going for sure because it's on my bucket list and has yet
Let's
to
hear it.
be realized. I'm taking a cruise across the Drake Passage to Antarctica,
Let's go.
and um, who am I gonna do that with? God, that's such a good question. Uh,
You're not taking
hmm.
Ernest Shackleton, who's done it before?
Fun fact: less than 1% of all of humanity that's ever lived has touched all seven continents. I want that.
Okay.
Who am I gonna do that with? Damn, that's such a good question. And I'm a who guy too.
Yeah.
Um,
Too many
hmm,
who's.
so many, man. So many. This is gonna sound cliche, but it jumps out at me. I want to do that with Michael Jordan because
Why?
I am genuinely curious in what his mindset, because he's legendary in the mythological sense. And I want to sit down with him human to human and gain an understanding for uh, the decisions he made to become as great as he was and why all the things that he forewent were worthwhile in pursuit of that greatness. Because
Mm.
there's all the things that he's talked about in interviews and on microphones, and what writers have written about him. But I want to know at a human level, like, why, not if it was worth it, but why it was worth it.
I would love to hear that interview on the Progress Always podcast.
I don't think the actual answer is for the public.
Yeah, I could agree with that. And I think that's something that resonates, or will resonate with a lot of people, because there's all of these, like you said, mythological heroes, if you will, of our time.
Yeah.
Right. The Michael Jordan that we grew up with. And now obviously we get an inside look through Netflix and all of these things, and like achieved everything a boy could ever want. Right. With obviously he has his vices, whether it's gambling and these other things. When he is 90, 85, 90, whatever, he's on his deathbed. What will his advice be looking back? Right. And will we ever have insight into those things?
Yeah.
Well put. Mycal Anders, thank you for being on the show. It is always amazing to connect with you. Where can people follow, continue to learn from you, to grow, and possibly work with you in the future?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm actually launching CoachDurs.com at the end of the month. So you can find all things that we talked about in terms of leadership and character development on that platform. You can follow me at Coach Durs, and everything that we do in fitness and lifestyle integration. You can go to nextlevelpfc.com and follow our tribe at nextlevel_PHX.
We will definitely link all of that in the show notes, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a comment wherever you listen or watch. Mycal, always a pleasure, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, man. My pleasure.